Kim Tae-ho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked down the long hallway of the spaceship Soul's Promise. His tool bag felt heavy in his hand, and his blue work uniform was already dirty from fixing pipes all morning. He was just a maintenance worker, not someone important like the diplomats or officers on the ship. Today was special, though. The ship was going to meet aliens for the first time in human history. Real aliens from another planet called Valtheria. Tae-ho had seen pictures of them on the computer screens around the ship. They looked like tall people, but their skin was like crystal that glowed with soft light. Everyone on the ship was excited and nervous. Captain Park Soo-bin had given orders to make everything perfect for the alien visitors. Every room had to be clean. Every machine had to work perfectly. Tae-ho's job was to fix the air and heat controls in the guest rooms where the aliens would stay. He stopped outside room 247 and checked his work list. The computer screen on the wall showed the room was empty. The aliens were not supposed to arrive for another 2 hours. He had plenty of time to fix the broken air system and leave before anyone came. Tae-ho pressed his hand on the door scanner. The door made a soft beeping sound and slid open. He stepped inside and looked around. The room was bigger than his own small quarters. There were strange decorations on the walls that the diplomats had put there to make the aliens feel welcome. He walked to the wall panel that controlled the room's temperature. The screen was flashing red, which meant something was wrong. Tae-ho opened his tool bag and pulled out his scanner. He had done this job hundreds of times before. It should be easy to fix. As he worked, Tae-ho heard a soft sound coming from the bedroom area of the guest suite. He stopped and listened. It sounded like water dripping, but that was impossible. All the water systems in this section were turned off for maintenance. He should probably check it out. If there was a water leak, it could damage the room before the aliens arrived. Captain Park would be very angry if anything went wrong today. Tae-ho picked up his tools and walked toward the bedroom. The sound was getting louder. It was not water dripping. It sounded more like someone breathing heavily or maybe crying. He reached the doorway to the bedroom and stopped. Someone was inside. But that was impossible. The computer said the room was empty. No one was supposed to be here yet. Tae-ho knocked on the wall next to the doorway. "Hello? Is someone there? I am here to fix the air system. I can come back later." The breathing sound stopped suddenly. Then he heard a voice, soft and musical, but speaking in a language he did not understand. It sounded scared. Maybe one of the diplomats was in there practicing for the meeting with the aliens, or maybe Dr. Choi Mi-young was setting up some equipment. Tae-ho decided to look inside just to make sure everything was okay. He stepped through the doorway and immediately froze. There was an alien in the room, not just any alien. This was clearly one of the important Valtheranes from the pictures he had seen, but something was very wrong with how she looked. The alien was tall and graceful, just like in the pictures. But her crystal-like skin was not solid like he expected. Parts of it were clear and see-through, and other parts were falling off her body like old paint peeling off a wall. Underneath the crystal skin, Tae-ho could see what looked like normal skin that glowed with soft blue and purple light. She was standing next to the bed, and pieces of her crystal skin were scattered on the floor around her feet. Her face turned toward him and her large eyes went very wide. She made a sound that was clearly shock and fear. Tae-ho realized he was staring. His mother had always taught him to be polite, especially to women. He quickly turned his face away and held up his hand. "Sorry, I am very sorry," he said in Korean, then tried to remember some English words. I did not know. I thought room was empty. I fix air system only." The alien made more sounds. Her voice was getting higher, like she was becoming more upset. Tae-ho could hear her moving around, probably trying to cover herself or hide. He kept his face turned away and started backing toward the door. "I go now. Very sorry. I come back later when room is empty." But as he moved toward the door, he accidentally kicked his tool bag. Tools scattered across the floor with loud clanging noises. When he bent down to pick them up, he could not help but see the alien again from the corner of his eye. She had wrapped something around herself, but she was still shedding pieces of crystal skin. The glowing skin underneath was clearly visible. She looked like she was in the middle of changing clothes, but instead of clothes, she was changing her entire outer skin. The alien spoke again, and this time Tae-ho could hear that she was definitely upset. Her voice sounded like she was asking questions, but he could not understand any of the words. Taeho gathered his tools as quickly as he could. Sorry, he kept saying. I did not know. Computer said empty room. I just fix air system. He stood up with his tools and finally looked directly at her face, trying to be respectful. Her eyes were like jewels, and they were filled with what looked like tears. Are you hurt? He asked, using simple English words. Do you need help? The alien stepped back from him and wrapped her covering more tightly around herself. She spoke, in her own language again, but her tone sounded like she was saying no or go away. Taeho nodded and bowed slightly, the way his grandmother had taught him to show respect. I understand. I go now. Again, very sorry. He walked quickly to the door, but before he left, he turned back one more time. The alien was standing very still, watching him. Even though she was clearly upset, there was something in her expression that looked curious, too. Air system still broken, Taeho said, pointing to the wall panel. I come back later when you not here. Or send different person if you want. Then he left the room as fast as he could, his heart beating very fast. As the door closed behind him, he could hear the alien speaking again in her musical language. Taeho stood in the hallway for a moment, trying to understand what had just happened. He had accidentally seen an alien in what was clearly a very private moment. She had been changing her skin somehow, and he had walked in on her like she was taking a shower. This was going to be a big problem. Taeho walked quickly down the hallway, his mind spinning with worry. He had never seen anything like what just happened in that room. The alien woman had been shedding her crystal skin like a snake shedding its old skin, but she had been so upset when she saw him. He clearly was not supposed to be there. He needed to tell someone what happened, but who? Captain Park would be angry that he had gone into the wrong room. The diplomats would be worried about making the aliens mad. But maybe if he explained that it was just an accident, everything would be okay. Taeho decided to find his supervisor first. Manager Yoon was a good man who always listened to problems without getting too angry. He found Yoon in the main maintenance room, checking supply lists on his computer. Manager Yoon, Taeho said carefully. I need to report something that happened. Yoon looked up from his computer. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. What is it, Taeho? Did you finish fixing the air system in room 247? That is the problem, Taeho said. He sat down in the chair next to Yoon's desk. I went to room 247, but there was already an alien there. I think she was one of the important ones. A princess, maybe. Yoon's eyes went wide. What? But they are not supposed to arrive for another hour. Are you sure? Yes, I am sure. She was there and she was changing her skin somehow, like molting. I think I saw something I was not supposed to see. Manager Yoon stood up quickly. Oh, no. This is very bad, Taeho. We need to tell Captain Park right away. Within 10 minutes, Taeho found himself standing in Captain Park's office. Captain Park Subin was a small woman, but she had a strong voice and sharp eyes that made everyone pay attention when she spoke. Behind her desk were pictures of her family and her medals from the Space Navy. Tell me exactly what happened, Captain Park said. She was trying to stay calm, but Taeho could see she was worried. Taeho told her everything. How the computer said the room was empty, how he heard sounds and went to check, how he found the alien woman in the middle of what looked like shedding her skin. Did you touch anything? Did you take any pictures? Captain Park asked. No, Captain. I just said sorry and left as fast as I could. Captain Park rubbed her forehead with her hand. This might be a serious problem, Taeho. We do not know their customs yet. What seems normal to us might be very offensive to them. Just then, the door to the office opened. Ambassador Lee Hae-won walked in with Dr. Choi Mi-young. Ambassador Lee was a tall man in an expensive suit who always looked serious. Dr. Choi was younger, with short hair and glasses. She carried a tablet computer everywhere she went. Captain, we have a situation, Ambassador Lee said. The Valtherian delegation has arrived, and their High Counselor is very upset about something. They are demanding to speak with someone about a serious cultural violation. Captain Park looked at Taeho. I think we know what they are upset about. Dr. Choi sat down and opened her tablet. I have been studying their culture for months. Captain, can you tell me what happened? Captain Park nodded to Tae-ho. Tell them what you told me. Tae-ho repeated his story again. When he finished, Dr. Choi was typing quickly on her tablet, looking up information. Oh no, Dr. Choi said after a few minutes. This is worse than I thought. According to my research, Valtharanes have a sacred process called the renewal ceremony. It happens when they shed their old crystal skin and grow new skin. It is one of their most private and sacred rituals. Ambassador Lee sat down heavily in a chair. How private are we talking about? Very private. Only family members are allowed to see a Valtharian during their renewal. For a stranger to see them during this time is considered one of the worst insults possible in their culture. Tae-ho felt his stomach drop. I did not know. I was just trying to fix the air system. I know you did not mean to cause trouble, Dr. Choi said kindly. But from their point of view, you committed a serious crime against their princess. Princess? Captain Park asked. Yes. Based on Tae-ho's description, it was definitely Princess Aralyn. She is the heir to the Valtharian throne and the leader of their diplomatic mission. Ambassador Lee put his head in his hands. This could end the peace talks before they even start. We have been planning this meeting for years. Just then, Captain Park's communication device beeped. A voice came through the speaker in accented English. Captain Park, this is High Counselor Velthara of the Valtharian Empire. We must speak immediately about the crime committed against Princess Aralyn. Captain Park pressed the button to respond. High Counselor, we would be happy to meet with you. There has been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Your crew member violated our most sacred customs. Princess Aralyn has been dishonored. The perpetrator must be punished, or we will end these talks and return to Valtheria immediately. The communication ended, leaving the room in silence. Ambassador Lee stood up and started pacing. We cannot let them leave. This is humanity's first chance to make friends with an alien civilization. If we fail here, it might be decades before we get another chance. What kind of punishment are they talking about? Captain Park asked Dr. Choi. Dr. Choi checked her tablet again. In their culture, the punishment for this type of violation is usually death. Tae-ho felt the blood drain from his face. Death? For an accident? To them, it was not just an accident. You saw their princess in her most vulnerable state. In their culture, that is like seeing someone naked in public, but much worse. Captain Park stood up and looked at Tae-ho. I am not going to let them execute you for an honest mistake. There has to be another way. Ambassador Lee stopped pacing. Maybe we can offer them something else. Money, technology, trade agreements. No, Dr. Choi said, shaking her head. This is not about money or trade. This is about honor and respect. We need to find a way to restore the princess's honor. How do we do that? Captain Park asked. I do not know yet. Let me research more about their customs. Maybe there is a way to make this right. Tae-ho had been quiet during this conversation, but now he spoke up. Can I talk to her? To the princess? Maybe I can explain that it was an accident and apologize properly. Everyone stared at him. Absolutely not, Ambassador Lee said. You have caused enough trouble already. But Dr. Choi looked thoughtful. Actually, that might not be a terrible idea. In some cultures, a direct apology from the person who caused the offense can help fix the problem. It is too dangerous, Captain Park said. What if you say the wrong thing and make it worse? Tae-ho thought about the alien princess in the room. She had looked scared and upset, but also curious when she looked at him. I do not think she is a bad person. She was just embarrassed, like anyone would be. These are aliens, Tae-ho, Ambassador Lee said. They do not think like humans do. Maybe that is the problem, Tae-ho said quietly. Maybe we need to stop thinking about them as aliens and start thinking about them as people. Dr. Choi smiled, slightly. That is actually a very wise thing to say. Captain Park's communication device beeped again. Captain Park, you have 1 hour to decide how you will handle this situation. If we do not receive a satisfactory response, we will leave your ship and return home. The room fell silent again. 1 hour to save humanity's first contact with an alien civilization, and it all depended on what they did about Tae-ho's accidental encounter with the princess. Conference Room 1 had been prepared for the most important meeting in human history. The lights were set to a soft level that would be comfortable for Valtharian eyes. Chairs were arranged in a circle so no one would sit higher than anyone else. Dr. Choi had spent 30 minutes making sure every detail followed the cultural guidelines she had researched. Taeho sat in his chair trying to stay calm. His hands were sweating and he kept wiping them on his work uniform. He had changed into his cleanest clothes, but he still looked like what he was, a maintenance worker about to meet with alien royalty. Captain Park sat next to him, along with Ambassador Lee and Dr. Choi. Across from them, High Counselor Velthara entered with her 2 guards. Behind them came Princess Ara Lin. Taeho had only gotten a quick look at the princess before, but now he could see her clearly. She was beautiful in a way that was completely different from human beauty. Her crystal skin was perfect and smooth, with patterns of light moving under the surface like slow lightning. She wore elegant robes that seemed to be made of the same crystal material as her skin, but her large eyes looked sad and embarrassed. She did not look at Taeho or any of the humans. She kept her gaze focused on the table in front of her. High Counselor Velthara spoke first. Princess Aralyn has agreed to this meeting, but she does not believe any human gesture can restore what has been lost. Ambassador Lee started to respond with formal diplomatic language, but Taeho stood up instead. Princess Aralyn, he said simply, I am very sorry for what happened. I made a mistake, and I hurt you. That was not my intention, but I take responsibility for it. The princess looked up at him for the first time. Her expression was surprised. Dr. Choi whispered to Ambassador Lee that direct apologies were unusual in Valtharian culture. I want to understand, Taeho continued. Dr. Choi has told me about the renewal ceremony. It is when you shed your old skin and grow new skin, right? And it is very private and important. Princess Aralyn nodded slightly, still looking surprised that he was speaking to her directly. In human culture, we have things that are private and important too. Things that make us feel vulnerable and exposed if strangers see them. I want to share something like that with you, so you are not the only one who has been seen in a vulnerable moment. High Counselor Velthara made a sharp sound. What could a human possibly share that would equal the violation of our most sacred ceremony? Taeho had been thinking about this question for the past hour. What did humans hide? What made them feel vulnerable? Fear, he said finally. Humans try very hard to hide our fears from others. We think that showing fear makes us look weak. But I want to tell you about my biggest fear, Princess Aralyn. Something I have never told anyone else. Princess Aralyn was now looking directly at him, her jewel-like eyes focused on his face. Taeho took a deep breath. My biggest fear is that I am not good enough. I am just a maintenance worker. I fix things that break. I am not smart like Dr. Choi, or brave like Captain Park, or important like Ambassador Lee. When I was chosen for this mission, I was sure I would make a mistake and ruin something important. He paused and looked around the room. And I was right. I did make a mistake. I did ruin something important. But now I am trying to fix it, because that is what I do. I fix things that are broken. Princess Aralyn spoke for the first time, her voice soft and musical. You believe you are not good enough? Yes. Every day I worry that people will discover I do not belong here with all these smart and important people. But you are here, the princess said. You were chosen for this mission. Someone must have believed you were good enough. Taeho smiled sadly. Maybe, but I still worry about it every day. That is my private shame. That is what I hide from others. Dr. Choi was writing notes quickly on her tablet. She seemed excited about something. High Counselor Velthara looked confused. This is not the same as our sacred ceremonies. You are simply talking about emotions. With respect, High Counselor, Dr. Choi said carefully, I think it might be more similar than you realize. Valtharians hide their renewal because it shows them in a state of change and growth. Humans hide their fears and insecurities for the same reason. Both are about not wanting others to see you when you are not at your strongest. Princess Aralyn was quiet for a moment, thinking about what Dr. Choi had said. Then she spoke again. When I am in renewal, I am not the strong princess that my people need me to be. I am just Someone changing into something new. Someone who might not be strong enough for what comes next. That sounds like fear to me, Teho said gently. Valtharanes do not experience fear, High Counselor Velthara said quickly. But Princess Aralyn looked at her advisor with a strange expression. Do we not? Then what do I feel when I worry that my new skin will not be as strong as my old skin? What do I feel when I wonder if I will be a good enough leader for my people? High Counselor Velthara did not answer. Captain Park leaned forward. Princess, what Teho shared with you is something humans almost never admit to each other. In our culture, showing fear or weakness can be very shameful. By telling you his private worries, he has made himself vulnerable in the same way you were vulnerable when he saw you during your ceremony. Princess Aralyn was quiet for a long time. Everyone in the room waited to see what she would say. Finally, she spoke. I have a question for Teho. Yes, Princess? When you saw me in renewal, what did you think? Teho thought carefully about his answer. I thought you looked beautiful, different from humans but beautiful, and I thought you looked brave. Brave? I was shedding my skin like a weak creature. No, you were growing, becoming something new. That takes courage. Most things that grow have to be soft and vulnerable before they become strong. Princess Aralyn stared at him. You do not think I looked weak or disgusting? Not at all. I thought you looked like someone going through something important and difficult, like someone becoming better than they were before. High Counselor Velthara made an angry sound. Princess, do not listen to this human's words. He is trying to manipulate you. But Princess Aralyn held up her hand. No, Velthara. I do not think he is lying. Humans seem to speak very directly about their thoughts. She turned back to Teho. In our culture, to be seen in renewal is shameful because it shows we are not always strong and perfect. But you are saying that humans do not see growth and change as shameful? That is right, Captain Park said. Humans believe that growth and learning from mistakes makes people stronger, not weaker. Dr. Choi added, in human culture, the ability to change and adapt is one of our greatest strengths. Princess Aralyn stood up and walked to the window that showed the stars outside. She was quiet for a long time, looking out at space. I have lived my entire life believing that showing weakness was the worst thing a leader could do, she said finally. But what if my people are wrong? What if hiding our moments of growth makes us weaker, not stronger? High Counselor Velthara looked alarmed. Princess, these are dangerous thoughts. Our customs have kept our people strong for thousands of years. Have they? Princess Aralyn turned back to face the room. Or have they kept us from growing into something better? She looked directly at Teho. I accept your shared vulnerability. Your fear of not being good enough balances my shame at being seen in renewal. We are both creatures who worry about our worth while trying to become better than we were. Hi. Princess Aralyn's acceptance of Teho's shared vulnerability changed everything in the room. High Counselor Velthara looked shocked and worried. The human delegation looked hopeful, but nervous. And Teho felt a strange sense of connection with the alien princess that he had never expected. Princess, High Counselor Velthara said urgently, you cannot simply accept this human's words as equal to our sacred traditions. What will the Emperor say? What will our people think? Princess Aralyn turned to face her advisor. For the first time since Teho had met her, she looked like the royal leader she was supposed to be. Her crystal skin seemed to glow brighter and her voice became stronger. What will they think, Velthara? That their princess learned something new? That she found wisdom in an unexpected place? The princess walked back to her chair, but did not sit down. Maybe it is time our people learned that strength can come from understanding others, not just from following old rules. Dr. Choi was writing notes as fast as she could. Princess, if I may ask, what exactly happens during the renewal ceremony? We want to understand why it is so important to your people. High Counselor Velthara started to object, but Princess Aralyn held up her hand. I will tell them, Velthara. If we are sharing vulnerabilities, then I should explain what they witnessed. She sat down and looked at each of the humans in turn. The renewal ceremony happens every 7 years for our people. We shed our old crystal skin and grow new skin underneath. During this time, we are soft and unprotected. Our new skin glows with inner light that shows our emotions and thoughts. That is why it must be private, High Counselor Velthara added. During renewal, we cannot hide what we truly feel. Our skin shows everything: fear, joy, anger, love. We are completely exposed. Teho understood now why seeing the princess during her renewal had been such a serious violation. So, when I saw you, I could see your real emotions? Yes, Princess Aralyn said quietly. You saw my fear about becoming the leader my people need. You saw my loneliness from carrying so much responsibility. You saw my curiosity about humans and whether we could truly be friends. I saw all of that, Teho said, but I did not think it made you weak. I thought it made you real. Ambassador Li leaned forward. Princess, when humans share our fears and vulnerabilities with others, it often makes our relationships stronger. We call it trust. Trust, Princess Aralyn repeated the word slowly. This is an interesting concept. Velthara, do our people have true trust if we never allow others to see our real selves? High Counselor Velthara looked uncomfortable. Princess, these questions are dangerous. Our society is built on proper behavior and respect for traditions. But what if our traditions are keeping us from growing? Princess Aralyn asked. What if hiding our true selves is making us smaller instead of stronger? Captain Park spoke up. Princess, may I share something about human culture? Please do. Humans used to have many societies that were built on hiding emotions and following strict rules. Some of those societies became very powerful for a while. But the societies that lasted the longest were the ones that learned to adapt and change. The ones where people could be honest about their mistakes and learn from them? Dr. Choi nodded. We have learned that diversity of thought and the ability to change make civilizations stronger, not weaker. Princess Aralyn was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Teho, when you make mistakes in your work, what happens? I try to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. Then I try not to make the same mistake again. And do your supervisors punish you for making mistakes? Teho looked at Captain Park, who smiled and nodded for him to answer. Sometimes, if the mistake was because I was careless or lazy. But usually they help me learn how to do better. Manager Yoon always says that mistakes are how we learn to be better at our jobs. But in our culture, Princess Aralyn said thoughtfully, mistakes bring shame, and shame must be hidden or punished. Maybe that is why my people have not grown. Much in the last 1,000 years, she continued. We have been so afraid of making mistakes that we stopped trying new things. High Counselor Velthara looked alarmed. Princess, you are talking about changing the foundation of our entire society. Am I? Or am I talking about helping our society become what it could be instead of staying trapped in what it has always been? Ambassador Li saw an opportunity. Princess, what if we could work together? Human culture has learned a lot about adapting and growing. Valtharian culture has wisdom about patience and careful thinking. Together we might be able to help each other become better. That is an interesting idea, Princess Aralyn said. But first, I need to understand more about human vulnerability. Teho shared his fear with me, but I want to understand how humans handle these feelings in daily life. Teho thought about this. Well, we talk about them sometimes. With people, we trust, and we try to support each other when someone is struggling with fear or sadness. You do not hide these feelings? Sometimes we do. But we have learned that hiding them usually makes them worse. It is better to share them with someone who cares about us. Dr. Choi added, we have discovered that when people can be honest about their struggles, they are often better at solving problems and helping others. Princess Aralyn turned to High Counselor Velthara. What if we tried this approach with our people? What if instead of hiding our renewal ceremonies, we shared them with trusted friends and advisors? Princess, that would be revolutionary. It would change everything about how our society works. Would that be such a bad thing? If it made us stronger and more connected to each other? High Counselor Velthara was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. I have served your family for many years, Princess. I have watched our people become more isolated and rigid with each generation. Perhaps there is wisdom in what these humans are saying. Captain Park smiled. High Counselor, we are not asking you to abandon your traditions. We are suggesting that maybe some traditions could evolve to serve your people better. Evolution, Princess Aralyn said. Like renewal, but for an entire society instead of just an individual. Exactly, Dr. Choi said excitedly. Humans and Valtharanes could learn from each other. We could share our knowledge about adaptation and change. You could share your wisdom about patience and long-term thinking. Taeho had an idea. Princess, what if we did an exchange? What if I learned about the proper way to observe a renewal ceremony, and you learned about how humans support each other through difficult times? You would want to learn about our renewal ceremonies? Princess Aralyn asked, surprised. Yes, not to see private things, but to understand why they are important to your people. And maybe you could teach me how to be respectful of your customs so I never make the same mistake again. High Counselor Velthara looked thoughtful. That would be unusual, but it might help prevent future misunderstandings. Princess Aralyn smiled for the first time since Taeho had met her. Her crystal skin glowed softly with what looked like happiness. I think that is a wonderful idea, and I would like to learn more about human friendship and trust. Ambassador. Lee looked pleased. This could be the beginning of a real cultural exchange between our peoples. But, Princess Aralyn said, becoming serious again, there is still the matter of the violation. Even if we have found understanding between us, the formal offense still exists in the eyes of my people. What do you suggest? Captain Park asked. Princess Aralyn looked at Taeho. I suggest we present our solution to my father, the Emperor, together. We will tell him that this incident has taught us something valuable about the strength that can come from vulnerability and understanding. Will he accept that? Dr. Choi asked. I do not know, Princess Aralyn admitted. But I think it is worth trying. And if he sees that I have grown stronger from this experience instead of weaker, he might be willing to consider new possibilities. High Counselor Velthara sighed. The Emperor arrives tomorrow to judge this situation personally. We will have to present our case then. Together, Princess Aralyn said firmly. Humans and Valtharanes working together to find a solution The meeting ended. Taeho felt something he had never expected. He was no longer just a maintenance worker who had made a terrible mistake. He had become a bridge between two worlds, helping them understand each other better. Tomorrow would bring the ultimate test of whether understanding and vulnerability could be stronger than tradition and fear. The Emperor of Valtheria arrived exactly on time, as Taeho had expected. Everything about the Valtharanes seemed precise and planned. The Emperor's ship was 3 times larger than Princess Aralyn's vessel, and it docked with Soul's promise, with perfect smoothness. Taeho stood in the main conference room, wearing his best uniform. His hands were no longer shaking like they had been yesterday. He had spent the night talking with Princess Aralyn and Dr. Choi, preparing for this moment. They had planned what they would say and how they would explain their solution to the Emperor. Captain Park had arranged the conference room to show respect for Valtherian customs. The lighting was soft and warm. The chairs were arranged so that everyone could see each other equally. Fresh flowers from the ship's garden were placed around the room because Dr. Choi had learned that Valtharanes appreciated natural beauty. When the Emperor entered, Taeho understood immediately why everyone feared and respected him. He was taller than Princess Aralyn, and his crystal skin had deep patterns that spoke of great age and wisdom. His robes were magnificent, covered with symbols that probably told the story of his reign. But his eyes were what made Taeho nervous. They were sharp and intelligent, missing nothing. Behind the Emperor came his personal advisors and guards. High Counselor Velthara was with them, looking worried and formal. Princess Aralyn stood when her father entered. Father, thank you for coming to resolve this situation personally. The Emperor's voice was deep and commanding. Daughter, I came because the honor of our family and our people has been violated. This is not a small matter that can be handled by subordinates. He looked directly at Taeho. You are the human who committed this offense. Taeho had practiced what to say, but now that the moment was here, he decided to speak from his heart instead. Yes, Your Majesty. I am Taeho, and I made a terrible mistake. But I have learned something important from that mistake. and I hope you will listen to what I have learned." The Emperor's expression did not change. "You will have a chance to speak before I pronounce judgment, but first, I must understand exactly what happened." High Counselor Velthara stepped forward and told the story of Taeho's accidental intrusion during Princess Aralin's renewal ceremony. She explained the cultural significance of what had been violated and why it demanded serious punishment. When she finished, the Emperor looked at his daughter. "Aralin, you have been dishonored in the worst possible way. How do you wish me to handle this violation?" Princess Aralin took a deep breath. Taeho could see her crystal skin glowing softly, which he now knew meant she was feeling strong emotions. "Father, I wish you to hear our solution before you make any decisions about punishment." "Our solution?" The Emperor's voice showed surprise. "You have been working with these humans on a solution?" "Yes, Father. And I believe what we have discovered could change how our people think about strength, growth, and relationships with others." The Emperor gestured for her to continue. Princess E. Aralin looked at Taeho and he nodded encouragingly. "Father, when Taeho saw me in renewal, I felt the deepest shame I have ever experienced. I thought my life as a leader was over. I thought our people would never respect me again." "That is the natural response to such a violation," the Emperor said. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of treating me like I was damaged or worthless, the humans treated me with respect and curiosity. They wanted to understand our customs, not so they could use them against us, but so they could avoid hurting us again. She paused and looked around the room. "And then Taeho did something that no Valtharian has ever done for me. He shared his own vulnerability with me. He told me about his fears and insecurities, things that humans normally hide from others." The Emperor looked confused. "Why would he do such a thing?" Taeho spoke up. "Because Princess Aralin had been forced to be vulnerable in front of me. I thought if I chose to be vulnerable in front of her, it would balance things out. We would both have shared something private and important. And did this balance restore my daughter's honor?" "More than that, Father," Princess Aralin said. "It taught me that vulnerability can be a source of strength, not just weakness. When Taeho shared his fears with me, I did not think less of him. I thought he was brave and honest." Dr. Choi stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, if I may, add something from our cultural studies. We have found that societies that allow people to be vulnerable and honest with each other are often more innovative and adaptive than societies that require everyone to appear perfect all the time." The Emperor considered this. "You are suggesting that our customs of privacy and formality make us weaker?" "Not weaker," Captain Park said, "but perhaps limited in how much you can grow and change." Ambassador Lee added, "Your Majesty, we believe that combining Valtharian wisdom and patience with human adaptability and emotional honesty could make both our peoples stronger." The Emperor was quiet for a long time. Everyone in the room waited to see what he would say. Finally, he spoke to his daughter. "Aralin, you believe that sharing vulnerability with this human has made you a better leader?" "Yes, Father. I have learned that admitting uncertainty and asking for help are not signs of weakness. They are tools that leaders can use to make better decisions." "And you," the Emperor said, turning to Taeho, "what have you learned from this experience?" Taeho thought carefully. "I have learned that making mistakes can teach us important things, but only if we are brave enough to face them honestly and work to make things right. I have also learned that different cultures can seem very strange to each other, but underneath, we often want the same things. We want to be respected, to grow into better versions of ourselves, and to build relationships with others." The Emperor nodded slowly. "These are wise observations for someone so young." One of the Emperor's advisors stepped forward. "Your Majesty, regardless of what has been learned, the violation still occurred. The law requires punishment." The Emperor looked at his advisor, then at his daughter, then at Taeho. "The law requires justice, but perhaps we need to consider what justice means in this situation." He stood up and walked to the window that showed the stars. "For 1,000 years, our people have followed the same customs and laws. We have been strong and stable, but we have not grown much. We have not learned many new things. He turned back to face the room. Perhaps it is time to try something different. The Emperor looked directly at Taeho. Human, you violated our most sacred custom, but you have also shown respect for our culture and willingness to learn from your mistake. You have shared your own vulnerability to balance the scales. Princess Aralyn, he continued, you have shown wisdom in finding a solution that honors both cultures. You have grown stronger from this experience instead of being broken by it. The Emperor paused, and Taeho held his breath. Therefore, I declare that justice has been served through mutual understanding and shared growth. There will be no punishment for this violation. Instead, there will be a new beginning. Relief flooded through the room. Ambassador Lee smiled broadly, and Captain Park looked proud of her crew member. But the Emperor was not finished speaking. Furthermore, I propose that we begin a formal cultural exchange between our peoples. Princess Aralyn will remain here as our first ambassador to humanity. And you, Taeho, will come to Valtheria to learn our customs and teach us about human ways of building trust and handling change. Taeho stared at the Emperor in shock. Me? But I am just a maintenance worker. The Emperor smiled for the first time since he had arrived. You are the person who accidentally started the most important conversation between our peoples in centuries. You are the person who found a way to turn a diplomatic crisis into an opportunity for growth. That makes you exactly the right person for this job. Princess Aralyn looked at Taeho with respect and warmth in her jewel-like eyes. Will you accept this position? Will you help our peoples learn to understand each other? Taeho thought about his life as a simple maintenance worker. Then he thought about the amazing things that had happened over the past 2 days. He had helped solve a problem that could have ended humanity's first friendship with an alien civilization. Yes, he said, I will do my best to help our peoples become friends. As the formal ceremony ended and both delegations began planning for the future, Taeho realized something important. He had been wrong about not being good enough. He had been exactly good enough to do something no one else could have done. He had been human enough to admit his mistakes, brave enough to be vulnerable, and wise enough to see that differences between cultures could become bridges instead of walls. The maintenance worker had become a bridge between worlds, and the future suddenly seemed full of exciting possibilities for both humans and Valtheranes.